Hey yo everyone, Kaiser here. So I've been inspired by the recent top 10 permanent servant video by Mist, so I decided to create one for craft essences. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see more of these kinds of videos. A disclaimer before we start, this list will be based on my opinion, so there may be some choices which you may agree or disagree with. Okay, without further ado, let's begin. I have two honorable mentions before our top 10. Firstly, we have the 3 CEs with a basic cardboard buff, which are Formal Craft, Imaginary Around, and Limited Zero Over. These CEs have an Arts, Quick, or Buster card buff, and are all attack statted. They can be good for servants who don't need charges like Nitocris, or just need face card critting like Super Orion, but there are still better options for CEs. The next honorable mention is Origin Bullet. This CE has a nice niche against enemies who are casters or have invincibility. So this can be good for certain challenge quests that have caster enemies and an invincibility mechanic. Now, starting on our top 10, at number 10, we have Volumen Hydrargyrum. This CE provides invincibility for 3 attacks and also increases damage slightly by 200, which scales to 500 at MLB. This makes it a particularly good niche for stalling out challenge quests where the enemies start with a full NP bar. However, outside of that, the invincibility can be taken out pretty easily, and it is also HP statted, which is really bad since you most likely will use this CE on your DPS to preserve them. So this is why it is positioned at number 10. Next, at number 9 we have Devilish Bodhisattva. This CE provides 50% NP gauge, which scales to 60% at MLB, and has a one-time unique mechanic of overcharging NP by 2 stages. This gives a great niche to servants who have good buffs on their overcharge, such as our OG Fox Girl Tamamo, who has an amazing overcharge effect that increases the NP gauge of all allies, scaling with the overcharge level. However, the downside of this CE is the mixed stats it has, making it really bad for overcharged DPS servants like Arash, which is why this CE will be positioned at number 9. Next up, at number 8, we have Victor of the Moon. This CE provides a 10% Buster card buff and 20% crit damage buff, which scales to 15% and 25% respectively at MLB, making it ideal for Buster crit servants like Super Orion and John Alter, but may not be as great of a CE for Buster servants that generally use their NP for damaging, such as our favorite pancake daughter, Abby. The key standout for this CE, however, are its attack stats. It has 2.4k total attack at level 100, which is 400 higher than most of the other attack statted CEs. However, the downside of this CE is the lack of an NP charge, which can make it difficult to create a Buster Brave chain if the servant using it is not solo. So, this is why this CE is positioned at number 8. Next up, at number 7, we have a Fragment of 2030, or just 2030 for short. This CE used to be one of the greatest CEs for most crit comps, but now it has fallen off quite a bit. However, it is still good and provides 8 crit stars every turn, which scales up to 10 crit stars every turn at MLB. This CE is good for crit comps in particular since it helps you forgo the need of a crit star generator, and it is used mostly on supports such as Merlin or Castoria since it provides 3000 HP at level 100, which can come in pretty clutch for challenge quests. Moving on, at number 6 we have Heaven's Feel. This CE increases NP damage by 40%, which scales to 50% at MLB. It is a good alternative to Black Grail if you don't own one, and can pretty much be used on most DPS servants that primarily use their NP for damaging. The only main issue it has is the lack of an NP charge, which is the same weakness as a Black Grail, but the trade-off for the NP damage is well worth it. Keep in mind though, this CE is generally considered a weaker version of Black Grail since it has 30% lesser NP damage and 400 lower attack stat, which is why it is ranked lower at number 6. Moving on, at number 5 we have Fondant Au Chocolat. This CE can be found in the Rare Prism shop and it increases damage against divine enemies by 25% while also increasing NP gauge by 30%. Which scales to a 30% increased damage against divine enemies and 50% NP gauge. Since this CE provides a starting 50% NP gauge as well as 2k attack stat, it gives a nice niche for DPS servants against fights with divine enemies, which is actually a pretty common trait as seen in this chart. It can be pretty expensive to obtain from the RP shop though, since it's priced at 5 rare prisms per copy. However, I think it is truly well worth it. Next up, at number 4, we have our first 4-star craft essence, Imaginary Element, also commonly known as the Budget Kaleidoscope. This CE gives a 60% starting NP gauge, which scales to 75% at MLB. This makes it pretty much great for all servants, since it charges their NP almost to its entire full bar. The only complaint about this CE is that it is mixed stat, with a 750 attack stat and a 1125 HP stat. However, in general, this CE is a must-have and should be one of your priority CEs if you lack a K-scope. Moving up the list to number 3, we have the CE I want an MLB of but can never get, which is Prisma Cosmos. This CE charges NP gauge by 8% per turn, which scales to 10% per turn at MLB. It is generally used on support servants in challenge quests so that looping is made easier. The best example of this would be Tamamo, since her NP charges more NP gauge for both her allies and herself. There are no complaints about this CE even though it is mixed stat, since it's mostly used on supports. Going forward, at number 2, we have the ultimate CE for increasing NP damage, the GigaChat Black Grail. This CE gives a huge NP damage increase of 60%, which scales to 80% at MLB. It is pretty much an amazing CE for most DPS servants, and is especially good and maybe even quintessential in arts looping, for setups such as Special Castora or any X Castora comps. It also has a maximum attack stat of 2400, which is once again 400 higher than most other attack statted CEs. This higher attack stat, coupled with the 80% NP damage, leads to huge stonks of damage for pretty much all DPS servants. The only downside is the 500 HP loss per turn, but that is a minor factor and doesn't really matter a lot. And finally, we have reached our number 1 spot. I'm sure you've all guessed it by now, but yes indeed, our number 1 CE is the king of NP bars, the Kaleidoscope. This CE doesn't require much explaining for why it's good. It is pretty much the most desired CE by all players, since it provides an 80% starting NP gauge, which scales to 100% at MLB, allowing you to instantly NP on the first turn, which is used a lot in some looping systems like the old Skadi system we had. It is also attack statted, making it ideal for DPS servants in any form of setups. Honestly, the only downside of this CE is how hard it is to get. Please Lasagna, just give me the last copy for the MLB I need. So there we go. This was the top 10 CEs according to the order of their general usability and how great they are stats wise. Hopefully this helped you figure out the CEs that you should prioritize and maybe helped you avoid burning some CEs that you thought would be useless. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Or if you want more similar content, make sure to leave a comment as well. Do follow me on Twitter too if you want updates, and do visit and follow me on Twitch as well for more live FGO content or if you have any FGO related enquiries. But otherwise, take care and have a great day ahead. See ya!